For more than a decade, Michael Learnid was the heart of the Waltons. Her gentle voice, steady presence, and quiet strength as Olivia Walton made her a fixture in living rooms across America. Families trusted her. Children saw their mothers in her. She became part of the national fabric without ever chasing the spotlight. But behind that warm smile was a woman at a crossroads. Fame had arrived suddenly, changing everything. At home, her marriage was unraveling. Her sense of self was slipping. And just when the world thought she had everything, Michael Learnid made a decision that would follow her for the rest of her life. Now, at 86, she speaks about that choice with a raw honesty she once kept hidden. What drove her to walk away from the role that defined her, and why does she still call it her greatest regret? Before the world knew her as Olivia Walton, Michael Learnid lived a life that was anything but ordinary. Born in Washington, D.C., in the late 1930s, she spent much of her childhood far from the bright lights of Hollywood. Her father worked as a diplomat, and the family moved frequently, eventually settling in Austria. Those early years abroad shaped her deeply. Surrounded by different languages and cultures, she developed a keen sense of observation, learning to read people and situations quietly rather than dominate a room. That sensitivity would later become one of her greatest strengths on screen. As a young woman, she didn't set out to become a television star. Her passion was the stage. She trained in San Francisco and eventually joined the prestigious American Conservatory Theater. There, she earned a reputation for emotional intelligence and precision in her performances. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't chasing fame. Instead, she built her craft carefully, role by role, without any guarantee that it would ever lead to widespread recognition. Then, in the early 1970s, television producers began searching for someone to play the mother in a new family drama set during the Great Depression. The role demanded a presence that was warm but firm, grounded yet layered. Michael Learnid auditioned almost by accident. She wasn't the obvious choice. She had little television experience and no major name recognition. But when she read for Olivia Walton, something clicked. Her quiet strength and unforced authenticity stood out immediately. Landing the role changed everything overnight. At a time when television often relied on broad caricatures, Olivia Walton felt real. She wasn't perfect. She was human. Viewers saw their own families reflected in the Walton household, and at its center was a mother who held everyone together with grace and resilience. For Michael Learnid, the show offered both a career breakthrough and a kind of stability she hadn't experienced before. The set became a second home. She forged deep bonds with her castmates, particularly Richard Thomas, who played John Boy, and Ralph Waite, who played her husband. Their chemistry was effortless, built on mutual respect rather than performance tricks. Week after week, millions tuned in, and suddenly the woman who had spent her life moving through the world quietly became a household name. Yet even in those early days of success, a seed of unease was growing. She had stepped into fame almost accidentally, but fame came with expectations she wasn't sure she could meet. Beneath the surface, her personal life was shifting in ways that no one on set fully understood. That tension between public stability and private uncertainty would define the next chapter of her life. When The Waltons premiered in 1972, few expected it to become a cultural touchstone. American television at the time leaned heavily toward urban comedies and flashy variety shows. A slow, heartfelt drama about a rural family during the Great Depression seemed like a gamble. Yet within weeks, it was clear that audiences were hungry for something different. The show's honesty struck a chord. It reminded viewers of values that felt endangered in a changing world: family loyalty, perseverance, faith, and quiet strength. At the center of this world was Olivia Walton, played by Michael Learnid. Her portrayal grounded the series. She didn't need grand speeches to convey emotion. A single look, a measured pause, or a steady hand could shift the tone of an entire scene. Week after week, she embodied the moral backbone of the Walton family. giving the series its emotional anchor. Critics quickly recognized her contribution, and award nominations followed. She would go on to win multiple Emmys for the role, each one reinforcing how vital she had become to the show's identity. Behind the scenes, the cast developed a rhythm that mirrored the family they portrayed. Meals were shared together, scenes were rehearsed with care, and relationships deepened beyond the camera. Ralph Waite, who played John Walton Sr., became a trusted friend and confidant. Their on-screen marriage was so believable because it rested on genuine respect and an unspoken understanding of each other's strengths. Richard Thomas brought youthful intensity, and the younger cast members looked up to Michael Learnid as a kind of guide. She took that responsibility seriously, even when the pressures of production grew intense. The show's success expanded far beyond ratings. It became a cultural reference point. Families across the United States gathered every week to watch together. In a period marked by political turmoil and rapid social change, the Waltons offered stability. Letters poured in from viewers thanking the cast for reminding them of their parents, their childhood homes, or a simpler time they feared was slipping away. For Michael Learnid, this reaction was both humbling and overwhelming. She had not set out to become a symbol, but that's exactly what happened. As the series grew, so did the demands on her time. Long shooting days, publicity commitments, and constant public attention became part of her life. Her image as Olivia Walton was now inseparable from her personal identity. Viewers expected her to reflect the same strength off-screen that she projected on camera. That kind of pressure rarely shows in interviews or photographs, but it builds quietly, moment by moment. And while the world saw a woman at the height of her career privately, cracks were beginning to form. The role that gave her purpose was also becoming the weight she carried everywhere. While the Waltons presented the image of a stable, loving family, Michael Learnid's private life was far less settled. Away from the set, she was confronting a series of personal upheavals that contrasted sharply with Olivia Walton's calm authority. Her marriage to Peter Donat, which had begun years earlier when they were both immersed in theater, was unraveling. The demands of raising 3 children, maintaining a home and sustaining a marriage under the glare of sudden fame proved overwhelming. As her professional life soared, her personal foundation began to fracture. Alcohol became a way to cope. What started as occasional drinking gradually turned into a quiet dependency that she kept hidden from most of the cast. On set, she remained disciplined and composed. She delivered her lines flawlessly, guided younger actors, and rarely let anyone see the strain beneath the surface. But when filming ended, she often found herself alone, trying to escape feelings she couldn't fully name. The gap between who she was on television and who she felt she was in private grew wider each year. Her sense of isolation deepened. Despite working in a close-knit environment, she often felt removed from the joy that surrounded her. The public adored Olivia Walton. They saw her as the embodiment of kindness and resilience. But Michael Learnid was navigating emotional exhaustion and uncertainty about her future. She had entered television almost by accident, and now found herself defined by a single role, unsure if she could ever step outside of it. The more beloved Olivia became, the harder it was to separate the character from the woman behind her. She also struggled with the practical realities of fame. Interviews, appearances, and constant scrutiny made it difficult to process her personal challenges privately. Divorce carried a different kind of stigma at the time, and she worried about how her choices might affect her children. Balancing the responsibilities of motherhood with a demanding production schedule left little room for self-reflection. Every day was about keeping up appearances, performing well, and maintaining the image expected of her. As the seasons progressed, the tension between stability on screen and turbulence off-screen reached a quiet breaking point. She didn't have a public scandal. There was no dramatic confrontation. Instead, it was a slow build of exhaustion, a sense that something essential inside her was slipping away. When the cameras rolled, she delivered the warmth audiences cherished. When they stopped, she returned to a life that felt increasingly unfamiliar. This emotional divide set the stage for the choice that would change everything. A decision she would look back on decades later as the moment that shaped the rest of her life. By the late 1970s, the Waltons had become one of the most recognizable shows on American television. For Michael Learnid, the role of Olivia Walton brought professional stability and cultural significance that few actors experience. Yet beneath the surface, she was reaching a personal crossroads. The emotional strain of maintaining the image of television's ideal mother while navigating private turmoil had taken its toll. She began questioning whether staying on the series was sustainable. Each new season felt heavier than the one before, and the thought of stepping away began to surface with increasing frequency. Her decision wasn't impulsive. It formed slowly, shaped by exhaustion, personal restlessness, and the desire to explore life beyond Walton's mountain. She had spent years inhabiting a character who represented unwavering strength, but privately, she felt vulnerable and uncertain. The long filming schedule left little room to heal from her divorce or rebuild her sense of self. She loved the cast and the atmosphere they had created together, but the role no longer felt like a refuge. It began to feel like a responsibility she couldn't fully carry. There was also a growing curiosity about what else might be possible. Television had given her a sudden platform, but she came from the stage and still believed in her ability to take on new creative challenges. As offers trickled in from other projects, the idea of starting fresh became tempting. Stepping away seemed like a chance to rediscover who she was beyond Olivia Walton. She imagined a new chapter, one where she could choose her roles freely, and perhaps reconnect with her artistic roots. At the time, it felt like a bold, necessary move. When she finally decided to leave after season 7, it caught many by surprise. Officially, Olivia was written as moving to Arizona to recover from tuberculosis, a graceful exit that left the door open for occasional returns. Behind the scenes, there were no explosive confrontations or public disputes. She approached the decision with quiet resolve. She believed she was doing the right thing for her well-being and for her craft. It was a moment that required courage, but it was also steeped in uncertainty. Walking away meant leaving behind a family she had built over years of shared experiences. She knew the absence would be felt, both on screen and personally. Still, she convinced herself that the change was necessary. The reality of what this choice would mean for her career and identity wasn't fully clear to her at the time. In that moment, she saw possibility. Only later would she realize the full weight of what she had left behind. Leaving the Waltons opened a door that Michael Learnid hoped would lead to a revitalized career and personal rebirth. In the months following her departure, she threw herself into new projects. She appeared in television movies, stage productions, and guest roles on other series. Each opportunity was a chance to redefine herself as more than Olivia Walton. She approached these roles with the same dedication that had made her famous, determined to prove that her talent extended far beyond one character. Yet the landscape had changed. The role of Olivia had been so deeply etched into the public's memory that casting directors often saw her through that single lens. Offers came, but they lacked the depth and cultural reach of the Waltons. Some were short-lived series that failed to find audiences. Others were dramatic roles that never achieved the same emotional resonance. She continued to work steadily, but the spark of possibility she had imagined when she walked away began to dim. The career reinvention she'd hoped for proved more elusive than expected. Personally, the adjustment was just as complex. The daily rhythm of working on a long-running series had provided structure and a sense of belonging. Suddenly, that structure was gone. The cast, who had felt like family, were scattered across different projects. The set that once felt like a home base no longer existed in her daily life. She faced a quieter, less predictable existence, one that forced her to confront questions she had postponed for years. Without the steady heartbeat of Walton's mountain, she had to reckon with who she was outside of that world. As the years passed, she returned for reunion specials, slipping back into Olivia's role with ease. Each time she felt both warmth and ache. The bonds with her castmates remained intact, but the experience highlighted what she had left behind. Watching the familiar house, hearing the same lines, stepping into the kitchen set, it all carried a bittersweet weight. She realized how deeply intertwined her identity had become with that fictional family. The decision to leave hadn't erased that bond, it had simply changed its shape. Eventually, with the benefit of time, she acknowledged the quiet truth she had long carried. Walking away had cost her something she couldn't fully recover. Not fame, but a sense of rootedness. The series had given her a stability she didn't fully recognize until it was gone. While her talent remained unquestioned, the cultural moment that the Waltons represented was unique. No other project could recreate that blend of personal connection and public impact. The realization settled slowly, not as a single dramatic moment, but as a steady awareness that grew clearer with each passing year. In her later years, Michael Learnid has spoken about her past with a kind of honesty that only time can allow. She no longer tries to separate herself from the role that defined her. Instead, she reflects on it with gratitude, clarity, and a lingering sense of what might have been. At 86, she looks back at her time on the Waltons, not simply as a career highlight, but as a formative chapter of her life. It was a period that shaped her identity, brought stability during chaos, and connected her to millions of viewers in a way few actors experience. She has said that leaving when she did was her greatest professional regret. Not because the show needed her to survive, but because she realizes now that she needed it more than she understood at the time. The set provided structure, community, and a sense of purpose that she hadn't found elsewhere. Stepping away gave her freedom, but it also removed a foundation she had come to rely on. The decision wasn't made recklessly, but with hindsight, she sees it as a turning point that marked the end of one era and the uncertain beginning of another. Age has brought perspective. She understands that no career remains fixed in one place forever, and that change was inevitable. Yet the way she left, and the timing of that departure, still resonates deeply. She doesn't dwell on it with bitterness. Instead, she treats it as a lesson about appreciating moments while they are happening. During her years on the series, she often felt restless, uncertain whether the role was holding her back. Now she sees that it was also holding her up. Her legacy is inseparable from Olivia Walton. Generations of viewers grew up with her as the steady presence in their homes, even if they never knew her name off-screen. Reruns continue to air, and younger audiences discover the series every year, often surprised at its emotional power. Her performance endures because it was never forced or theatrical. It was grounded in lived experience, quiet strength shaped by a complex personal journey she carried just out of frame. In interviews today, there's no trace of defensiveness when she discusses her past. Instead, there's calm acceptance. She acknowledges her missteps, cherishes the memories, and honors the bond she shared with her fellow cast members. Her story is not one of scandal or downfall, but of a woman who made a difficult choice, lived with its consequences, and ultimately came to peace with it. The regret remains, but so does the legacy. A legacy built on grace, vulnerability, and a role that continues to touch hearts long after the cameras stopped rolling. Michael Learnid's journey is one of remarkable talent, quiet strength, and honest reflection. She stepped into a role that became larger than television itself, then made a choice that shaped the rest of her life. Time has softened the edges of that decision, but the lesson remains clear. Sometimes the moments that define us aren't recognized until they're behind us. Her story isn't about loss alone. It's about legacy, growth, and the enduring power of a character who still lives in the hearts of millions. For more emotional stories, check out this video.